Welcome back to PKF Hotel Experts in Conversation With. And today I don't have to move far. I could have moved down the road to say hello to Enver Duminy, who is the CEO of Cape Town Tourism, an old friend, and I had the pleasure of serving on the board when Enver was there many years ago. Enver, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Nils. I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, we're living in very, very strange times. The background that you're sitting in front of, our beloved Table Mountain, which I also often show with pride in my background. It's a site that many international visitors love to see, but have not been able to see for way too many months. What is Cape Town Tourism? Let's start with that. What is Cape Town Tourism and what do you guys do?
So again, Niels, thanks for the opportunity to be able to talk a little bit, with PKF experts. So Cape Town Tourism is a not-for-profit organization. We're basically a voluntary membership organization. We've got over 1,000 businesses, from tourist guides to airlines to hotel groups to restaurants to wine farms as members. And what we are also privileged to have the responsibility for is being custodians of the tourism brand for Cape Town. And what that means is that we are the official destination marketing and destination management organization for the city of Cape Town. And we've had that privilege, I think, for the last 15 years, since our inception as Cape Town Tourism. I think we've demonstrated our value as being kind of the connector between industry, community, visitors, and government. And we've been able to maximize that USP for quite a long time. That has resulted in the successes we've had as a destination prior to COVID.
Thanks for the explanation. And the city of Cape Town's destination, over the last many years has been voted best destination, sexiest city, most livable city on the African continent, all sorts of accolades and what have you. And then, this year started extremely well, I believe, and I'm being told that, the projections in January and February were absolutely amazing. And then COVID hit. So, as I was saying at the beginning, people love that view, love to be here, but it's very difficult to get them here. So many destinations the world over, and that I think is one of the most critical points for me in the COVID crisis, that it affects everybody. So everybody is now looking at the savior domestic tourism. What role does domestic tourism play for Cape Town and the surrounds?
Yeah, it has been a tough couple of months now since we've gone into a national lockdown because of COVID. I mean, you're right. I mean, we were seeing double-digit growth during the last quarter, just prior to lockdown. We were forecasting performance to outperform 2019. And again, I mean, if Cape Town was an airplane, Air Cape Town was probably at its highest cruising altitude. And unfortunately, with COVID and lockdown, we had to come in and do an emergency crash landing. And with that, we've also been forced to reassess. As long as international borders remain limited and inaccessible, we also knew that we needed to also refocus our efforts and energies on a domestic market. And I think for two reasons. One, domestic market can't really travel outside of our borders. So you've got a captive audience who were going to travel at some stage. And I think more importantly, and it's something that I remember you as a director saying to us many times before, is that domestic market is the lifeblood of any tourism in a city, and international tourism is the cherry on top. And I think for us as Cape Town Tourism is that because of those accolades, the global appeal, the growth in international visitors, it has come at the cost of domestic travel. And for us, it has become a bit of a reality check as a destination, because when you don't have that many options, you need to also make sure that you're offering to the domestic market. And I'm not talking about price. I'm talking about your offering as a destination needs to make sure that it still caters for the domestic market, that they feel welcomed and not alienated, or that they feel foreign in their own country. So for us as Cape Town Tourism, it has always been a focus, but I think we've just ramped it up now a lot more aggressively in the last 4 months.
Mm-hmm. And you're seeing fruit. I mean, are you the current numbers, how they're tracking in comparison to previous years? Because we would be now. I mean, it feels like June, but it actually is already November. So we are basically in the season, what we used to call season. We're in that international season, and obviously that is not there. How are the domestic numbers tracking?
Well, I actually got some feedback from the team last night, and they had indicated that they're beginning to see significant growth month on month in the domestic campaign. So just for your edification, is that we are running 2 domestic campaigns in parallel. The one is focusing on self-drive, and then the second one is on flight sold. And we're running it in parallel because we also need to understand, again, the domestic market also prefers sometimes a self-drive option. And we are running these campaigns for 3 months, which will actually end in December, where we're hoping to get the maximum yield. And the feedback from the team, from the partners we've got on board, is that they've already seen, between 75 to 150% growth month on month. But again, it comes off a lower base. So I think we need to look in context. But I think for me, growth is positive. And then when I look at the airport arrival numbers from the domestic, we're beginning to see that growth again. There's also going to be more domestic carriers also starting to run services now actually, they started running at the end of October. So what we're beginning to see, there's a growth in confidence in travel through the domestic market, which I think it's important for us to not only make sure we can capitalize on, but also provides further confidence to us as the sector that we are on the road to recovery. Even though we may not be getting the massive volumes we used to experience, I think it's about taking every single domestic tourist and treating them like gold.
Now, you said you didn't want to speak about price. I'm sorry, I have to press you on that a little bit as well, because domestically we have been seen as an expensive destination, a great value for money when you come from overseas, but locally maybe not so much. And look, it's the market. The market regulates itself, and there were discussions of dual pricing and all those things. At the moment, we don't even have to look at dual pricing as far as I'm concerned, because they're not coming in from overseas in the numbers that they used to right now until the borders remain closed or semi-closed. Now, has the industry come to the party to look at specials? One wants to make sure, and we would always, as hotel experts, always advise people to maintain your rate integrity and whatever you. But we also know that market forces dictate, and when you're sitting with single-digit occupancies, you start looking at how can you massage those rates, how you do value adds and whatever. Have they come to the party, and do you find it a lot more cooperative in comparison to maybe previous years where we were spoiled with great incoming traffic?
I think, you hit the nail on the head there. Market forces are at some stage affecting, especially we're looking at the hotel sector. There's decisions around their rates. I think a lot of them have shifted to the dynamic pricing, which then, of course, allows them to manage their occupancy as well as their cost. But I think, to answer your question in a simple way, is that there has been a shift towards relooking at pricing, but mostly from the cost base. And I think that has been also a result of COVID. If we've had no revenue coming into, the hotel sector for at least 7 months, everybody went into major cost containment, really looked at every single line item in your budget, and then renegotiating contracting, which hopefully gives you the breathing room that, at some stage, that even if you do adjust your price downward, that you can still find that profitability. And I think that's what it comes down to, is finding the sweet spot around the profitability while managing your costs. But the way we see it as Cape Town Tourism, and it's something that we are actually going to be doing a refresher on and a re-signing, is called the Code for Responsible Pricing in Cape Town. It's something that we had initiated with the other associations in Cape Town as part of the World Cup, where there was also questions and concerns around pricing. And this Code of Responsible Pricing says that we want to make sure that pricing is fair, it's transparent, that it can be explained, and it's not about price gouging and trying to look at short-term gains, because that will have a long-lasting impact on the credibility of the sector. But I think the other part of it as well is that when it comes to the input costs in Cape Town, that is also high when you look at rates, taxes, levies, because the hotel sector, particularly is quite focused on making sure they meet all regulated requirements. Nobody wants to take shortcuts. They want to, contribute. And when you add those costs up, it starts affecting the pricing. And I think what we are doing now, as well as engaging with government locally, the municipality, say, what form of relief is there that allows us to say, well, if you want me to bring pricing into some form of affordability range, that you also need to make some form of consensus on the other side, because you can't add further burden on the sector and expect them to bring the pricing down, because that's never going to be sustainable. But I also think just around pricing, it's always also a perceptual thing, Nils. And when I look at Cape Town, there of course are, the top end, the 5-6 stars, but there's also at the lower end, which is amazing value when looking at the 1-star market. And I think it's also about making sure we can showcase a lot more of it. I think we have been blessed with international tourism and people having the ability to be able to afford through foreign exchange a 5-star. But we mustn't forget also, and what we've done as Cape Town Tourism, specifically around affordability, is we actually are launching a pocket-friendly campaign for domestic next week. And then we also are busy with, and we've successfully launched, which is still one of our most visited sites, 50 things to do in Cape Town for under 50 Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And those things still exist. So I think, at the end of the day, our job as Cape Town Tourism is to make sure we can market the full gambit of all offerings on all levels, to start counterbalancing the perception that we are expensive. Yeah. And yes, there are things that are expensive, but I think also as South Africans, we don't really have a strong savings culture when it comes to travel. We almost expect a bit of immediacy of saying, I want to go and experience, and I expect him to give me a discount, even though I don't care about their cost. And that's also part of the education and awareness that we are building as Cape Town Tourism in trying to help the consumer. But also we are engaging with, stokvels as an example, where travel and savings as a mechanism for a stokvel could also facilitate a new type of consumer for travel in South Africa.
Yeah, look, I mean, as you said, it's a different culture, and at the end of the day, Cape Town is a world-class destination, and world-class destinations do come with the whole spread of offerings, and the top end it's more expensive, at the bottom end it becomes more economical. Just to come back quickly, because time is running out, unfortunately. Red lists. We do have these red lists in South Africa where most, if not all, of our international source markets are red listed. That is revisited. I don't know when the next revisit is due. What is your view, or is there an official view that you guys have? Is it right to list entire countries, or should we look at a testing regime? There are all sorts of technicalities involved with that, and some destinations are doing it differently. What is your view on that?
Well, I mean, our view is clear on this one, Nils, is that, to red this entire country doesn't make economic sense. We understand there's the health protocols, etc. But I think when you are doing what they call PCR tests before someone departs a destination and when they land, and also before they leave Cape Town, there's enough adequate risk management in that process. And I think also from a health facilities perspective, we have got world-class facilities to be able to deal with any surges, which we are prepared for as a destination. So I think to red list countries doesn't make sense. But what's even further as strange is that separating a business traveler from a leisure traveler within a country, where you say the one can come and the other one can't, it doesn't make sense at all, because the virus doesn't care whether you're a business traveler or leisure traveler. So again, to your earlier comment, as you opened the conversation is that it affects everyone. And therefore our management should be saying, if we're going to open up the economy, which we are in, a big pickle here, is that we need to be smart about opening up the opportunity for anybody to come and visit, even from a red list zone, but then make sure we have the right level of mitigation and testing and insurance in place to still make sure that we can protect South Africa, but allow people the opportunity and the liberty to come and visit us.
Right. Enver, I wish I could chat longer with you. We must definitely catch up for a real face-to-face coffee very, very soon. But thank you very much for your time. I wish you well. I wish Cape Town well. I hope that we be able to offer this beautiful view that you got behind you to many, many visitors, may they be local or may they be international. Thank you, Enver Duminy, CEO of Cape Town Tourism.
Thank you, Nils. Goodbye.